Welcome to the latest episode of Healthcare AI. I'm Todd Schlesinger, and once again excited to be your host on today's show. In today's episode, we're going to dive into a theory that has become a driving force in disruptive technology development and adoption. The concept sounds simple. Focus on a job that needs to be done in order to understand why consumers buy and use a product. But its application requires a reframing and a focus in order to make it work. Here to help us understand the jobs to be done theory and its application in healthcare AI is Michael Johnson, Director of Innovation at Atrium Health. Michael, welcome. Thanks for joining us this morning. So, Michael, can you help us understand the theory of jobs to be done, and why has this become so popular recently?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Todd, for having me on. I'm looking forward to talking with you today. The jobs to be done. It's really answering kind of one of the questions we've had around for a long time in a new way, and that question is, how do I make a product better or make a new product? And so, what really informs that? And for a long time, folks have tried to answer that different ways. Customer surveys, doing market analysis. Jobs to be done just goes at it a slightly different way, but an important way. Really what they look at is they look at the context that somebody's in, and then what they call forces of progress, the things that would actually kind of, in this certain situation, here's what I've got going on, what I want to do, and that would lead you to then buy a product or a service. And I'll give you an example of kind of how this insight played out, and it's came from Clay Christensen at the Harvard Business School, and he has a really neat example of the milkshake. Have you heard that before?
No, I don't think I'm familiar with that one.
So it's interesting because a fast food. I'll get it to you real quick. A fast food group wanted to end up selling more milkshakes. How do they make their milkshake a better product? And so they had all these interviews with customers and did all this analysis. Do you want it thicker, thinner, chunkier,
chocolatier,
sweeter? So how do we make this milkshake better? Well, they got all that feedback because they listened to the customer. They put updates to the product, and it didn't move sales at all. And so I'm like, what are we missing here? Well, what they ended up doing is Clay's group went in and they looked at it a different way. And one thing that they noticed is half of the milkshakes are being sold before 8 a.m. And so that was really intriguing, interesting. And bottom line, they dug into it and found out that the reason that the folks were buying milkshakes at 8 a.m. is because they had these kind of things in common. One, they always came in and bought the milkshake and nothing else and drove out. They didn't stay there and drink it. They drove out. And they all had a long, boring commute. They wanted something that would keep them full because, a milkshake would, kind of sit heavy in you. And they also needed something they could use with one hand, right? Because they have one on the wheel,
sure.
one that can be free. So, the interesting thing is it didn't have anything to do with, being a dessert item or something. It was really solving the job of them. I don't want to be bored during this 20-minute commute, and I want something that's going to keep me full. And a milkshake did that better than anything else for them. So, if we end up understanding really what they're trying to get done, we're going to end up having a better understanding of how do we align the products, make the products better, but also what kind of new things can we do to really address that job that they're trying to do.
It's an amazing story. So put that in the context of really what are the jobs to be done in healthcare? How does that now work into how we're applying that into the healthcare field?
Yeah, so we've applied this to a couple of different things, and like I mentioned before, we're trying to look at making our services better, but then also, if we're going to go about creating a new service, what would that be? And I'll give you an example of when we looked at it for what we call Ondemand care, the areas where we look to have, you and I don't know when we're going to get sick or when we're going to go to the ER or the doctor, but there's things that are going on that cause you to go in and do that. I think we've all been in a situation where we were thinking like, well, maybe I can just muscle this thing out. I'm not feeling that great, but I don't think I want to go to the doctor. And well, maybe I do. And, there's this, it's really, intriguing. It's like, what is it that's causing you to go in and go and make that decision to hire your doctor, whether it's a virtual visit or an
Mm-hmm.
emergency room. And when we looked at that on-demand care, that those times when folks came into those services, we discovered that there are really three jobs that they're trying to fill. Um, the job number one was like, hey, look, I know what I've got. I've had it before. Just give it to me fast, okay? Because
Mm-hmm.
this thing is it's like allergies. Some folks have like, look, I know what it is. I can tell you. I can almost self-diagnose myself because I know myself so well, and I have it this time all the time.
I just
So
need my
in that
allergy
situation, it's
meds
like,
and sure.
yeah. So it's just like I just need a more of a transaction. I just just I need to get it fast, cheap, easy, in and out.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is like, look, I don't know exactly what's going on, but bottom line is I've got other things in my life with my health that I don't want to mess up. And so it's really important for me to know that you know me and you know my other situations and we don't mess all that other stuff up. So having to be, being known by that physician or that caregiver is really important because they have other things going on with their life. Like we've talked with folks that have, they're going through fertility treatments. Well, I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
go in there and get some other treatment that might jeopardize that. So I really want you to understand my context and my history. That was the second job. And then the third one was like, I I don't know what I've got going on here, and I'm just really freaking out about it. So just tell me what we've got here, so I can know what's next. And the interesting thing about that
Yeah.
one is I don't want to get it solved. The thing I want to get solved is I just want to know. I'm not talking about getting a treatment and getting better. I just want to know
First, I
what I'm
just need to
dealing with.
understand it. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So and that's something that you can't really apply. It's like, well, that's just going to affect an 18 to 35 male in this income bracket, which is a typical way that you can do market segmentation. It really looks at, how do we find people that are sitting in those contexts and be able to align and really, get the message to them or make it easier for them to access our products and services in those situations. So how do we really kind of connect in those moments and help them understand that when you're going through that situation, this is the best way that we can help you out with that.
So, of kind of those three buckets, if you will. I mean, talk to me about how Atrium is applying this theory and operationalizing this kind of methodology in some of your initiatives.
Yeah, I mean, it's really helped out with informing a lot of our virtual strategy. And then also we are looking at our primary care services and seeing how we can
Mm-hmm.
end up, really improving those and bringing a better patient experience to those. And again, that if we're going to do a great patient experience, we need to know what kind of experience the patient wants. And so it's a really great way to inform really how do we craft around that visit all the way from before you even come in through the visit and out and really understanding the job to be done, the context and the progress that they want to make is really probably the best way that we're going to be able to do that.
So talk to me about your thoughts on as these technologies are being being utilized uh, and aligned to this theory. Excuse me. What do innovators need to understand in order to be successful in healthcare? And as we know, this is a unique space. So applying this jobs to be done in healthcare, what do those innovators need to really understand in order to make this work?
Yeah, I think it's if you've been in this space and you've really tried to put products into market, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. You've got to understand um, really the pain points and the hopes and aspirations of that customer you want to serve. And it, I was in developing IT products before I actually moved into strategy and innovation. And one of the things that I really experienced firsthand is our group can make some really awesome tech. We made some great products. We put it out there, and it didn't have the traction that
Yeah.
I thought that it should. And at the same time, sometimes we would do some products that really didn't take a whole lot of effort, and it was wildly successful. And it was really intriguing to me why that was. And it really came down to you've got to really fit it into solving that problem for them. So I think, that's with technology, it's, falling in love with the solution, not the problem. Well, really what we're trying to do as innovators here is really fall in love with that problem. Because when we
Mm-hmm.
really understand that problem and empathize with the person that's experiencing that problem, we're going to be successful with having that right product. And it's not one of those things also. I think it's important to know that it's not one of the process you go through is just not great. I've talked with the customer. They've told me this is the problem. We're going to go off in the building over there and build it and bring it back to them. We got to involve them every step of the way too.
Sure.
And so I think that's very important.
So what is it that makes these innovators fail? Is it just not understanding, not listening to the customer, or what are the top reasons that these innovators don't quite make it work?
Yeah, I think it's a constant thing being able to have that product or that service connect and solve that problem. Like I was mentioning before, when we developed products before, when I was in my IT role, I recognized that when we put that product out there,
Mm-hmm.
I believe that it was never going to be as effective as it will be on day one. As week 1, week 2, week 3, as time goes by, life changes, things change, and that product is, for the most part, a stagnant, product that hadn't changed since the day that we implemented it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that one of the challenges that we have is, as innovators, is, we put so much work in designing and developing and getting a solution out there, and we really make a big hit on day one, but we really have to pay attention and listen and make sure that continually gets updated, and also it continues to make sure it addresses that problem. Because I think that it's a constant kind of communication back and forth and listening that has to happen.
So let's talk about some specific technologies. Looking at AI, I mean, how do you see AI, fitting into this this theory, and how are you all bringing this into this methodology?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting way to kind of bring those two together. I mean, bring jobs to be done to AI and healthcare is really, really interesting. And the thing that I really like about the jobs to be done methodology, especially when it comes to technology, is it's a great tool for separating the hype versus reality.
Sure.
How do we know that AI can actually solve a problem? Well, until we really understand the problem to be solved, that needs to inform the solution that we have. And AI, as you know, Todd, it's a two-letter word that can mean lots of
Sure.
different things, and it's very challenging for folks that aren't in the field. And it's even challenging for me to sometimes is really understand, okay, what is it exactly that we're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, if we really understand the jobs to be done, that's really going to guide where we want to look within that broad spectrum of AI.
How do you feel like AI is going to change the expectations on the part of the clinicians and the consumers, the patients?
Yeah, I think there's kind of an equal amount of fear and hope around
Sure.
AI. I think there's concerns that it's just going to take things away, and I think there's the hope that it's just really going to help usher in a new type of with health. And I think there's a little bit of truth to both of those things. I think the thing that I'm very optimistic about AI, and when I look at it, one of the areas that I think that it can really help us out with is, specifically when we talk about jobs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
You and I, we do multiple jobs, right? I do several things throughout my day. Some of them are things that are more routine, mundane, repetitive.
Sure.
I've got to do, fill out expense reports or email tasks or what have you. And then there's other things that are more creative, strategic, things that I think really allow me to add a lot more value to the organization. And so, when I think about jobs to be done in AI, and again, kind of this concept of AI could take away jobs, I'm thinking like, well, let it take away those jobs that are really bogging me down on the routine, repetitive. And specifically when you look at healthcare, we've got a crisis with clinician burnout, with physician burnout.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge problem. I heard a lot about that again at Health, and one of the things that's really really hard, I think, is we have so many things that have to get done in providing health that it's really keeping us from bringing a lot of the compassion and empathy. It's locking it up. If we ended up having AI take away some of these routine jobs
Mm-hmm.
for our physicians, that would then allow more capacity for this compassion, which is really what they want to do. They want to provide that compassionate care. And I like the idea of AI looking at taking away some of the work that they're doing. That really, I think that they would be fine with having off their plate, because again, it would allow them to do what they really went into medicine for in the first place,
Sure.
which is to have that practice and that connection with that patient.
So you don't see it being, I mean, a fear of massive layoffs. You see it as really being a big help, a lift to getting
Yeah.
people back to
No.
doing what they wanted to do in the first place.
No. Yeah. No. And I don't think that I'm not really concerned about massive layoffs, at all. I think if anything, it's gonna shave away a lot of things, and it's gonna augment kind of, and really make us better at doing what we already do.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna just, as I was mentioning with the physician, but you can kind of think of all these other activities. You also might have some folks that we're going to really need their help in designing on, what AI is going to do. I mean,
Yep.
It's one of these things, again, I was talking about before. You can have a technologist that's really great at building, algorithms and models, but what am I going to have that thing to do? And
Yep.
so I think it's going to create more opportunities for us to have AI consultants, so to speak, where they can help us design and define how we're going to have AI work for us to really provide better care.
So, as you're looking at technologies like AI and you're applying looking at the jobs to be done, I mean, what's your thoughts on what does healthcare look like in 10 years?
Yeah, I think, and as you know, AI, it's developing at different paces, right?
Sure.
It's not one AI. There's machine learning, prediction. There's all these different things, and I think that it'll come in phases as far as how it shows up in healthcare. I think in the next 5 years, we're really going to see a lot of efficiency gains with AI. Again, kind of as I was talking about, it's really starting to show up in those repetitive, routine areas of
Mm-hmm.
life, and I think that's where we'll see it show up first. And then that'll probably be 5 years, and then 5 to 10. I think we'll end up seeing a lot more prediction, a lot more things that allow us to basically do things that we know we want to do. It's just too hard to do today,
Sure.
and so being able to do better prediction, better models. I think that's probably 10 years. We're going to start to see some really, really kind of transformational effects of AI.
What So with that in mind, I mean, what do you believe are the most disruptive technologies that are coming down the line now that you see in the next couple years that are going to really start to gain some momentum?
I think some of the things we've got to get really good at first is understanding and connecting a lot of our data that we have
Mm-hmm.
out there. As you know,
Sure.
data AI is only as good as the data that we have, and when you do look at where healthcare needs to be, so much of that data, we've got really good visibility and insights in when it's within our walls, and so we've got lots of data on that. But when you leave, and we know that I've heard somewhere up to 80% of health happens outside of the office,
Yep.
and so there's lots of data. In my life, I'm creating a lot of me out there, and a lot of my health and what needs to happen in my health
Sure.
happens outside that, and we don't have as much visibility on that. And so I think augmenting or complementing the data that we have inside with the data outside is going to be hugely important, because I think that we've got to be able to feed AI with really good data,
That's right.
and I know that, I mean, with, as you probably know, I mean, we've got so much of it. how much can we translate that into information,
Sure.
and not just again understanding the experience and the things that are happening within our walls, but really what we're trying to do is get you back to better life. And so how do we make sure that we are really doing that, and leveraging and working with folks that have data that really exists outside of our realm of knowledge that we have today is going to be hugely important.
So, without visibility to some of that data that you're talking about, and absolutely, I think we're all seeing that, those social determinants, right, are starting to become more prevalent. People are understanding that there's a clinical correlation to outcomes by looking at that information. But if you don't have visibility into that, how do you know what are the jobs to be done?
Yeah, I think there's firsthand research. We could do jobs, and we've done jobs research or interviews with folks that really get to that jobs to be done that they have outside. Like what medication adherence is a great
Sure.
one.
Yeah.
We something prescribed, and what ended up happening. And I've been firsthand. I wasn't even in the job interview, but I remember being at the pharmacist, and I was getting a prescription filled for my son. And a lady was having a conversation with the pharmacist right next to me, and she asked how much that pill was going to be, and it was several $100s, and she was like, "Oh, I got to eat," And it was, you hear about these things, and you read news articles and statistics, when you see one person there that made the decision right there that they're not going to fill that medication,
Sure.
and you recognize that there are barriers that exist to carrying out a lot of the care that folks need. And so the information's out there.
Sure.
I think that, we can go out there and get that, but then in the efficient way is how do we take that and really turn it into data that we can then feed models that allow us to really leverage that.
So look into your crystal ball, and if you could tell innovators really one thing on, as they work on developing the next big IT innovation, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I'd probably pass the advice, and I pass the advice that I was hearing at Health Conference. I went to several sessions that focused on this, and the thing that came up in several of the conversations was it's got to fit into the workflow.
Sure.
And this again kind of gets back to it can be a great technology, and you can have where I can prove that I can take data and I can show you the risk and show you all the different things, but until it actually gets to where it fits into that physician's workflow, that's where the rubber meets the road. And so a lot of the things we got to do is, again, bring them into the conversation. We got to have them part of that discussion and really understand their job to be done, their pain points, and how do we make sure that we get some of this great information, these great tools that are out there fit into where it helps them do their job. So I think, again, got to get back to like, this is where you want it to show up, and it's going to be with that physician. How do we make sure that it fits into their workflow and it supports them?
So, your thoughts on, are you all, you feel at Atrium that you all are doing that? Are you feel that you're leading the way and really looking for that feedback from the consumers and the patients? And, do you feel that this is, you all are heading in the right direction?
Oh, absolutely. I do. And I think that we're going to do a lot more. You're going to hear a lot more about that also in the future too.
Awesome.
I mean, we've done. I think when it comes down to it, our innovation group, we're not that big, but the thing that we do, we have high expertise in some of these areas. I mean, I'm not the jobs to be done expert. I've got some other folks that are practicing that a lot more than I am, and we've got other ones that really focus on business model innovation. I like to focus on the technology.
Sure.
And we really, I think, out of all these kind of skill sets that we have, it's very important, and we recognize that we are really at our service in the rest of the organization, and we reach across all the different areas within Atrium Health to really bring these groups together that that we really need to bring innovation to. And so we really look at ourselves as a resource to them and help them solve those jobs
Sure.
and those problems that we have. And so I think we've got that foundation laid, and I know that it's just going to continue to increase. So yeah, I'm really excited about where we're going next and how we're really going to bring that to to your neck of the woods.
Sure. Sure. So what are some of those areas that, what do you see as the next big mountain you all are going to climb?
Yeah, I think we're really committed to a learning organization, and
Sure.
one of the ways that you learn is you experiment. So I'm personally very excited about us investing more in that, in learning. How do we really discover? I mean, it's great to kind of think about all the things that we could do and map it out, but then until we actually go out there and try to, as you know, I mean, Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? So
Right.
how do we go out there and we take our punches, right? So
Yeah.
how do we start to go out there and see if I think this works? It makes sense. I'm told it makes sense. Does it actually work? And so until we
Apply it.
create and we out there and we So
Yeah.
I think I'm really excited about seeing more of that in the future, because I think that's really going to accelerate a lot of the transformation.
Well, I think it's amazing. I know that you all have created quite a culture of innovation at Atrium Health with you and your team, and I think that's amazing to see you guys really at the forefront of that and applying this this kind of actionable methodology here to kind of bring that to your patients. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So Michael, I can't thank you enough for spending time with us today. I really appreciate your insight, and thanks for taking the time to join us.
Well, it was good talking with you, Todd. I'm always happy to get on a call, and we'll kind of chat about what we're seeing and what we think, and love to continue that conversation.
Well, I would love to have you back for another episode on Healthcare AI. So appreciate your time today. Thanks so much to our guest, Michael, and thank you all for listening to Healthcare AI with me, Todd Schlesinger. If you like our show and want to learn more, check out our website at jvion.com and look for us in the coming months on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.